Mr. Deputy Mayor, we're live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. I'd like to call this meeting of the Development Services Committee to order. First, I'll read the land acknowledgement. The Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people and an ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Ottawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations, known collectively as the Three Fires Confederation. It continues today as the home for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the historic Métis community in Penetanguishene. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationship with this land, specifically the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, the Chippewa Tri-Council, and the William Treaties First Nations. The Huron-Wendat Nation also continues to pay respect and protect their ancestors and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and the culture that has thrived for millennia in this territory, and the treaties that bind us together as partners in the spirit of shared, sustainable, and prosperous future. We're all treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can move forward together towards reconciliation. Madam Deputy Clerk, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Moved by Young, seconded by Greenlaw. It is recommended that the agenda for the Development Services Committee meeting of Wednesday, September 6, 2023 be received and approved.
All in favor? Thank you very much. And before proceeding, I'd just like to make an announcement with regard to our own director, Derek Whitlib. As he heads to greener pastures, this meeting of the Development Service Committee marks the last such meeting that Derek Whitlib attends as an employee of the township. I'd like to take this moment to recognize Derek leaves a body of work here that will always remain as a testament to his professionalism. I'd like to thank him both personally and on behalf of council for his tremendous contribution to our township. You will be missed. Thank you. Okay, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. May we have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous Development Service Committee meeting, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Hutchinson. It is recommended that the draft minutes of the Development Services Committee meeting held on Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023 be received and approved as printed and circulated.
Thank you. Do we have any changes to the last set of minutes? Seeing none. All in favor? The motion is carried. Okay, with that, we'll proceed to the public meeting. There is one public meeting today, and prior to each, I'll just explain the process. I'll briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for each meeting. Each application will be considered separately. Staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the application, provide any relevant information, note any correspondence that has been received to date, and advise of any statement received from the applicant or if the applicant intends to make a presentation. If so, the applicant will then be given the opportunity to make a brief presentation. After the presentation, any members of the public that have been registered to provide comments or whom are in the audience will be given the opportunity to speak to the application being considered. The Deputy Clerk will advise of those who have registered, and finally, staff will confirm if any further correspondence has been received during the public hearing. There will be a separate statement read at the start of each scheduled public meeting and hearing. And with that, we will proceed to the first public meeting, application 2023 ZBA-12, consent application 2023-B-11. The applicant is 237-4357 Ontario Inc., and the location is 137 line 9 south. So this public meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain comments with respect to the proposed applications by 2374357 Ontario Inc. on lands municipally known as 137 line 9 south. Please be advised that the hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the proposed application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received on this matter?
Yes, correspondence received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, August 21, and Bridge Gas, dated August 23, and Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, dated August 28 and 29, and County of Simcoe Planning Department, dated September 6, 2023.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Catherine McCarroll, Intermediate Planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. McCarroll, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. So the property is located at 137 line 9 south. The property is zoned agricultural rural and designated agricultural in the township's existing official plan. So the current use of the property is agricultural, residential, and they also have a business called Fairgreen Sod Farms that they're in the process of legalizing through a separate zoning bylaw amendment application. Next slide. So the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the land proposed to be severed from an ARU zone to an ARU exception zone to recognize the increased floor area and height of an existing detached accessory building and recognize an increased lot coverage for all existing detached accessory buildings, and also to rezone the lands proposed to be retained from the ARU zone to the ARU exception zone to prohibit future residential uses and to recognize the reduced interior side yard setback for an existing agricultural building. Next slide. So the purpose of consent application 2023 B11 is the creation of a new lot through the severance of a surplus farm dwelling. So the details of the proposed severance are listed on the screen. So lands proposed to be severed would have a frontage of 76 meters and an area of approximately 0.6 hectares and would be for residential use. And the retained lands would have a frontage of 475.2 meters, an area of 33.4 hectares, and the use would be agricultural and they're Fairgreen Sod Farms. Next slide. So as part of the consent application, there are 2 easements that will be required, and the details of the easements are on the screen. So the first one's a 1x7 meter easement, which will be required on the severed lands to provide access to the existing hydrant that serves the agricultural use that's located on the retained lands. And then the second one is a 6 meter by 6 meter easement, which will be required on the retained lands to accommodate the existing well that serves the dwelling located on the severed lands. And I just wanted to point out that some of these numbers may be changing just based off of some of the correspondence that we've had with the building department. The owner actually has to revise the rear lot line, so some of these numbers may change. Next slide. So this is an aerial photo of the subject lands. So the existing dwelling and farm buildings are located on the left-hand side, kind of in the middle of the property. Yep, perfect, where the cursor is. And then Fairgreen Sod Farms is located, it would be the northwest corner, perfect, where the cursor is, the intersection of Schoolhouse Road and Line 9 South. Next slide. So this is a zoning map that illustrates that the entire property is currently zoned agricultural rural. Next slide. So the map on the left illustrates that the entire property is currently designated agricultural in the township's existing official plan. The map in the middle shows that the entire property was proposed to be designated employment lands in the township's adopted official plan, but they've been identified as non-decision lands until the county has the opportunity to refine their official plan schedules. And then the map on the right-hand side shows that the property is currently designated agricultural in the County of Simcoe official plan. Next slide. So this is the applicant's consent sketch. So the lands to be severed are identified in red. The remaining retained lands are identified in blue. There is an easement for access to the hydrant that's illustrated in black, and there's an easement for access to the well that's identified in green. Next slide. So this is the applicant's detailed site plan for the lands to be severed. So there is an existing dwelling that's located in the middle. There is an existing agricultural building in the top right-hand corner of the lands to be severed. But since the proposed lot is less than 2 hectares in size, an agricultural building is not permitted. So the building is now going to be classified as an accessory building. So part of the zoning bylaw amendment will be to recognize the oversized building and that all accessory buildings exceed the 5% lot coverage. And then based off of discussions with the building division, the property owner will be revising that rear lot line that's in between the existing accessory building and the agricultural building on the lands to be retained. So this site plan will be changing, but that's part of why we're recommending deferral. Next slide. So these photos show the view looking both east and west along Schoolhouse Road. Next slide. And these photos show the views looking both north and south along Line 9 South. Next slide. These are photos of the public notice signs that were posted along both roads for the zoning bylaw amendment application. Next slide. And these are photos of their existing business, the Fairgreen Sod Farms, that they're in the process of legalizing through the separate zoning bylaw amendment application. Next slide. So these are photos of the existing dwelling and accessory building that are located on the lands to be severed. Next slide. So the photo on the left shows the existing oversized accessory building on the lands to be severed. And then the photo on the right shows the shipping container and in behind it, the accessory building. And that shipping container will be removed prior to finalizing the application. Next slide. So the photo on the left shows the existing agricultural building on the lands to be retained. And the photo on the right shows the separation between the existing accessory building on the lands to be severed and the existing agricultural building on the lands to be retained. So the applicant was originally proposing a setback of 2 meters, but based off of discussions with the building department, they've revised that to 4 meters, but that might have to change again. The building department still has concerns that the revised setbacks don't comply with the Ontario Building Code. And that is part of the, or that is the reason for the recommendation for deferral. Next slide. So these photos are the existing farmland on the lands to be retained. Next slide. So the photo on the left shows the existing hydrant that is located a couple feet from the accessory building. And that's where the applicant is proposing an easement on the severed lands to provide access to the hydrant. And then the photo on the right shows the existing well. You can just make out the top of it. It's adjacent to the agricultural building. And so the applicant is proposing an easement on the lands to be retained to provide access to the existing well. It's provide access to the dwelling. Next slide. So it is recommended that zoning bylaw amendment application 2023 ZBA 12 and consent application 2023 B11 be deferred to provide the applicant the opportunity to address the building department's comments with regards to the proximity of the existing agricultural building to the proposed interior side lot line. And I am available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCarroll. Now ask the applicant, Lindsay Fairty, who is registered to speak to the application, and if she wishes to provide any comments or indicate if there's any further to be added to the staff presentation? Is there, Alinda Ferretti?
Excuse me, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the applicant had registered to be in person, but she's not in attendance, and I don't see her in the waiting room either.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, are there any comments or questions from the committee with regard to this application? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Catherine, through the deputy to you, could you, the 12-meter setback that is in question, will that make the severed lot go deeper towards the barn? Like, so is the setback from the barn to the accessory building or from the accessory building to the barn?
So through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Mayor Greenlaw. So it's a 2-meter setback was in the original site plan. They're now proposing a 4-meter setback, and that's from the existing agricultural building on the retained lands to the proposed lot line. So I'm not sure if we can go back to maybe the zoomed in site plan. Perfect. Oh, that one there. Okay, so you can see there's where there's a black line, it says easement. Just below that, there's a 7 meters. And then to the right of that, it says 2 meters. So instead of proposing to be 2 meters from that agricultural building, they're proposing currently to be 4, but building still has concerns with that. So that might be changing again. And that's all with concerns with meeting the Ontario Building Code.
Supplemental, if I could. So in the building code, what is the standard from an agricultural building as a setback?
So through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, I'm not too sure what the actual building code requirements are. I know from a zoning bylaw perspective, it's typically 15 meters. Building code has concerns with fire separation from the lot line. Unfortunately, that's all I can provide from a building standpoint. I don't have expertise in that area.
No, that's fine. That clarifies it for me. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Whitlip.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just further to Ms. McCarroll's comments, I neither can provide a specific number, but the building code requirement is a function of the material of the wall facing that lot line, so combustibility, the number and size of openings. So the actual distance the code spits out can vary depending on those factors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. Any other comments? Councillor Schell?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. To you, Catherine, is there, I don't see accessibility to that barn once that's severed there, that property severed. How do they get a road into that? Is there a plan for that? I don't see it on the plan.
So through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Councillor Schell. So around the lot, the proposed severed lot that's in red here, both sides of that lot that have access to line 9 would be part of the retained lands. I'm not too sure. I'd actually have to go back to the aerial imagery and see if there's an existing, so they don't have an existing driveway. So that driveway right now would provide access to the existing dwelling and detached accessory buildings. They would have to add a new driveway for access to that agricultural building.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions or comments from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone registered to speak to this matter, either present or online?
There were no additional registrations received.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone here present to speak to this matter? Okay, seeing no one. Are there any additional correspondence received during the course of the meeting?
No, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any final comments or concerns or questions from the committee? Seeing none. So the committee wishes to thank all those for your participation through either your submission of written comments or oral comments during the meeting, and will consider all the matters in the future meeting with regard to this property. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regards to the application. And I presume Madam Deputy Clerk will deal with the deferral at the end of the meeting?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you very much. We move on now to our first public hearing. This application is 2023A32. The applicant is George Langstaff, and the municipal address is 419 Line 11 South. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the proposed application by George Langstaff on lands municipally known as 419 Line 11 South. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the proposed application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received on this matter?
Correspondence received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, August 21, Building Division, August 28, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, dated August 30, 2023.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Danielle Waters, planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. Waters, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is minor variance application 2023A32 for 419 Line 11 South. The zoning is residential 1. Official plan designation is the Hawkstone residential area, and the current use is residential. So we've seen this property here before in 2022 for application 2022A53, which was a minor variance for this deck as well as an addition to the rear of the dwelling. They are looking to amend that original setback from the front lot line for the unenclosed deck or a covered porch. So they are changing that or requesting to change that setback from 5.18 meters to 3.89 meters from the front lot line. The required setback is 7.5 meters. Here we can see the aerial photo, just the red outline there. Existing zoning is the residential 1, and we can see the green is the environmental protection. There is a creek to the left or the north of the property, and we've received comments from LSRCA that are that they have no objection to the revised porch. Next slide. Here we can see the updated site plan. So just to the rear of the house, that original addition that was proposed, and the front of the house is that reduced setback from the front lot line for that covered porch. Next slide. And the elevations of the property, and we can see best view is the top left of those elevations, the front porch there. Next slide. So north and south on line 11. The photo on the left shows the retaining wall around the creek, and photo to the right can show the notice sign that was posted. existing accessory buildings on the property. There's one closer to the front there, and then two at the rear of the property. And then the right photo shows that existing dwelling. So the front porch will come out, extending the entire length of that dwelling there. Next slide. So staff have recommended approval of the application, subject to a couple conditions. One being that the porch is, unenclosed. That a surveyor or an engineer, whoever will pin the foundation or the posts, as well as requiring an LSRCA permit on top of the zoning certificate and the building permit. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Waters. I'll now ask Agent Christy Fishpool, who is registered to speak to the application, see if she wishes to provide any comments or indicate anything further to be added to the staff presentation. Ms. Fishpool, please.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee members, do you have any questions, comments of this application? Okay. Seeing none, seems fairly straightforward. Madam Deputy Clerk, are there any persons registered to speak to this matter from the public?
No, Mr. Deputy Mayor, there were no additional registrations received.
Okay, and is there anyone present here to speak to this in the chambers? I see none. Mr. Whitlib, has there been any further communication during the course of the hearing?
No additional comments received.
Thank you very much. Having heard that, I presume there are no further comments or questions from the committee themselves. Seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we have the motion, please?
Moved by Greenlaw, seconded by Bard. It is recommended one, that DS 2023-069 Danielle Waters, planner, minor variance application 2023-A32, Randy Langstaff 419 line 11 South be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023-A32, specifically to permit a reduced front yard setback for a covered unenclosed deck to 3.89 meters, 12.76 feet, on lands municipally known as 419 line 11 South be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2023-069. 3, that the applicant be advised of the committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much for that. All those in favor? The motion is carried. This completes the application process and closes the hearing. The committee wishes to thank those in attendance for your participation. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regards to the application. And enjoy that porch. I'll just check the time here. Okay, good. We can start the next hearing. It is application 2023-A33, David Dominguez, 2249 Lakeshore Road East. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the proposed application by David Dominguez on lands municipally known as 2249 Lakeshore Road East. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the proposed application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received on this matter?
Correspondence received from Alderville First Nation, August 17, Brent Cameron, August 19, Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, August 21, Brian Stratford and Margie Bax, August 26, Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, August 28, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority dated September 1, Paul Sanderson dated September 6, and Kathy Wright and David Parator dated September 5th, 2023.
Thank you very much. Now I'll turn the meeting over to Catherine McCarroll, Intermediate Planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. McCarroll, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. So the property is located at 2249 Lakeshore Road East. The property is zoned shoreline residential and designated shoreline in both the township's existing and adopted official plans. And the current use of the property is residential. Next slide. So the applicant is proposing to build a detached accessory building, which will be used as a garage. And they're requesting relief from section 5.1.4, maximum height, to be increased from 4.5 meters to 5.3 meters. Section 5.1.5, maximum lot coverage, to be increased from 5% to 5.6%. Section 5.1.6, maximum floor area, to be increased from 70 square meters to 130.5 square meters. Next slide. So this is an aerial photo of the property. So the existing dwelling is located in the middle, right below those numbers, 2249. And the proposed garage will be located between the dwelling and the road, just in front of those trees. Next slide, sorry. This is a zoning map that shows that the entire property is zoned shoreline residential. Next slide. So the map on the left and the map in the middle illustrate that the property is designated shoreline in both the township's existing and adopted official plans. And then the map on the right-hand side shows that the property is designated rural in the county official plan. Next slide. So this is the applicant's site plan. So the dwelling is located right in the middle. The septic system is identified in green between the dwelling and the lake. Perfect. And then the proposed detached accessory building is identified in blue, and that's between the dwelling and the road. Perfect. Thanks. Next slide. So these are the applicant's elevation drawings. So he is proposing a two-story garage. The main level would be used as a garage, and then the second floor would be used for storage. Next slide. So these are the applicant's floor plans. So the top image shows the first story floor plan, which is proposed to be 768 square feet. And then the bottom image shows the floor plan for the second floor, which is proposed to be 637.2 square feet. Now, I just wanted to point out there are some differences in the square footage that's illustrated on the screen. We only include the floor area for the areas that have a ceiling height over 1.8 meters. And we also calculate floor area as exterior faces of exterior walls. So hopefully that clarifies the differences in numbers there. Next slide. So these photos illustrate the views looking both northeast and southwest along Lakeshore Road East. Next slide. This is the public notice sign that was posted along the road. Next slide. So this is a photo of the existing one-story dwelling. So as I indicated in my report, I have concerns with the size of the proposed garage relative to the dwelling, as the dwelling is one story and 875 square feet, whereas the proposed garage is 2 stories and 1,405 square feet, which makes it really difficult to argue that it's secondary and subordinate to the primary dwelling. Next slide. So the photo on the left shows the proposed location of the accessory building. It's really hard to make it out there. I think you can see 3 of the stakes. They're in the shadows of the tree. But basically where some of that construction material is located is where they're proposing the garage. And then the photo on the right-hand side just shows the view of the dwelling from the road, or sorry, well, the dwelling, but the entire property from the road. Next slide. So these photos illustrate the existing vegetation along both interior side lot lines. So should the application be approved, I recommend a condition that the vegetation be maintained or replaced if it's damaged during construction. Next one. So it is recommended that minor variance application 2023 A33 be deferred to provide the applicant time to address planning staff's comments and at the request of the applicant, who's willing to work with staff to find a solution that addresses our concerns. So I'm available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCarroll. Now ask the applicant, David Dominguez, who is registered to speak to the application, and if he wishes to provide any comments or indicate if anything further to be added to the staff presentation. Mr. Dominguez, please. Just please step forward to the podium and speak into the microphone. Just state your name for the purposes of the record.
Name is David Dominguez.
Thank you.
I'm the applicant on this minor variance request, and we have actually deferred or postponed so that we can actually work with staff in regards to addressing the issues that have been actually basically included in the staff report. Okay. We just got the staff report just on Friday, and so I haven't had time to actually really go through it, and I'm willing to work with a planning department to actually come up with a solution that works for everybody.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Committee members, do you have any questions for staff or Mr. Dominguez? Yes, sir, Councillor Young.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's not for Mr. Dominguez. It's in relation to the comments on this particular application, as well as the next one, being Mr. Morsink, but I'll confine my question to this one. And I think in light of the fact that the same question is going to be asked of this application as well as the next one on the menu here, or the schedule, I think perhaps it's best that Mr. Whitley answer the question, because it seems to be a policy of the planning department itself. I just want to read you a comment from Dr. Julie Kripke, consultation coordinator from the Alderville First Nation. I'm just going to read it. It's very brief. Please be advised that an archaeological assessment will need to be conducted prior to disturbing the soils in any way. This property is directly on waterfront and as such has a high potential for archaeological resources to be present, as well as the potential for burials. And again, she's sent somewhat the same letter to the next application, but from the township's perspective, their response to her comments and her concerns is that with respect to the comments received from the Alderville First Nation requesting that the preparation for an archaeological assessment, planning staff is of the opinion that no planning or archaeological objectives would be furthered through requiring the applicant to undertake an archaeological study in this particular situation, as the subject lands are already developed in this established shoreline residential area. I have just some concerns, as was expressed by the consultant, Dr. Julie Kripke, as well. In this particular application, as indicated by Ms. McCarroll, where the garage is going to be located, it's undeveloped in that particular area. As at the time, I'm sure that going back a number of years when this property was developed, there was no requirement for an archaeological assessment of the property. But my question is, does the development planning department, do they advise the First Nations peoples, no matter where it is, of the reasons why no archaeological assessment is going to be done? That's my question. I just want to know if they are provided with the reasons why, or provided some sort of copy therein why, again, no archaeological assessment will be done. I mean, this doctor is obviously concerned about the potential for remnants of habitation there by the First Nations people. So I'm just going to ask Mr. Whitley to comment on that, because this question pertains to this one again and the next one forthcoming.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead,
Yep.
Mr.
Thank
Whitley.
you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you to Councillor Young. So certainly appreciate the comments from the Alderville First Nation. Oro-Medonte has tremendous archaeological resources from an archaeological perspective, where pretty much the whole township is considered high archaeological potential. And what I mean by that is Indigenous peoples. We have a number of, for example, Huron villages that have been discovered in the township. So there's very little area in the township that is not potentially high in archaeological value. The approach from a land use planning perspective, in terms of the policies of the current official plan, the adopted official plan, and the county official plan, is somewhat one of risk management. In terms of developments such as this one, where the development footprint is relatively small and the site has already previously been altered in some way, from staff's perspective, there's a relatively low risk of archaeological potential. Having said that, if during excavation something is uncovered or discovered, legislative requirements automatically kick in, and those archaeological resources would need to be addressed. Certainly if this was a vacant site or subject to a larger development, where there's relatively a greater risk of disturbing archaeological resources, certainly as in the case of plans of subdivision or even specific site plan approval applications that we've had for commercial or industrial developments, a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment would be required right out of the gate, followed by any further archaeological assessments if triggered by the findings of the stage 1 and 2. So in this context, staff certainly respectfully acknowledge and receive the comments of the Alderville First Nation, and would provide the Alderville First Nation with a copy of, as a commenting agency, with a copy of any decision that's made on the application. But in this case, staff are not recommending that the applicant undertake a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment for the purposes of this relatively minor development.
Thank you very much. Okay. Supplemental?
No, just I want to thank you for that detailed response and on that matter. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments, questions? Okay, seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone registered to speak to this matter, either here or on the interweb?
There were no additional registrations received.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone who's come in recently to speak to this matter? Seeing none. Okay. Has there been any additional correspondence received on this matter during the hearing?
No additional comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the applicant wish to make any further comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, not at this time. For the record, the applicant said not at this time. Can we now hear the motion, please, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Clark. It is recommended, one, that DS 2023-071, Catherine McCarroll, Intermediate Planner, minor variance application 2023A33, David Dominguez, 2249 Lakeshore Road East, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023A33, specifically for permission to build a detached accessory building with an increase in height of 5.3 meters, 17.4 feet, increase in lot coverage of 5.6%, an increase in floor area of 130.5 square meters, 1,405.2 square feet on lands municipally known as 2249 Lakeshore Road East, Township of Oro-Medonte, be deferred to provide the applicant the opportunity to address planning staff's comments and at the applicant's request. 3, that the applicant be advised of the committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. All in favor? The motion is carried. This completes the application and closes the hearing. The committee would like to wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation, and particularly the applicant for wishing to defer and work with staff. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regards to the application. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we move on to public hearing application 2023A34. It's applicants are Richard Morsink and Caroline Bolma Morsink. Address is 201 Lakeshore Road West. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comment with respect to the proposed application by Richard Morsink and Caroline Bolma Morsink on lands municipally known as 201 Lakeshore Road West. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the proposed application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any communication received with regard to this matter?
Yes, correspondence received from the Alderville First Nation, August 21, Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, August 21, Building Division, August 28, and Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, dated September 1, 2023.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Andy Karaskakis, Manager of Planning Services, who will explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and any written statement received from the applicant. Mr. Karaskakis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The subject lands are located at 201 Lakeshore Road West and currently support a one-story single detached dwelling and a boathouse. The subject lands are zoned shoreline residential in the township's zoning bylaw and are designated shoreline in the township's official plan. The applicants are proposing to construct an addition to the existing dwelling and are seeking relief to the following sections of zoning bylaw 9795. The applicants are proposing to reduce the front yard setback where the bylaw requires 7.5 meters to a proposed 2.59 meters, and a reduction in the interior easterly side yard setback from 3 meters to 1.9 meters. This image here shows an aerial shot of the subject property outlined in red. You have Lakeshore Road to the north, shoreline residential lots to the east, the road allowance McHugh Street to the west, and Lake Simcoe to the south. As mentioned earlier, the subject property is zoned shoreline residential, which is consistent with the shoreline residential properties in this area. Couple of shots here looking at the township's official plan. The land use designation on the far left of the screen is designated shoreline. Similarly, in the township's adopted official plan, and is designated rural in the county's official plan. The applicant has provided a couple of images here to depict the proposed addition to the existing home. So this image here shows the site plan and a blue and yellow highlight which shows the proposed variances. So the addition is proposed to be attached to the existing attached garage, which is going out towards Lakeshore Road West. And the reduced front yard and the reduced easterly side yard setbacks are shown in the yellow and blue. So 2.59 meters to the front lot line and 1.9 meters to the easterly side lot line. The elevation drawings here, as prepared by the applicant, shows the existing garage, and the proposed addition is to the far left of the top image, which shows to be a 2-bay car garage. and a couple of shots looking at it from the side and from the rear of the dwelling. The applicant also prepared floor plans, so they are proposing to renovate the existing attached garage, and the proposed addition will replace the current garage, which is proposed to be used now for vehicle storage. It's proposed to be, I believe, 3 bays, 2 bays for sure, but also will be used for additional storage for the applicant's purpose. A couple of images here looking east and west along Lakeshore Road. The image to the left shows the view of the subject property from McHugh Street. There is mature vegetation as shown on these images here along the frontage of McHugh Street and also Lakeshore Road West. Image to the left there shows the existing dwelling with the attached garage there. Again, looking from the McHugh Street, looking inwards. Again, the image to the right there from McHugh Street of the existing dwelling. Again, very heavily vegetated along the property lines. And there is the notice sign shown in the right picture. The bottom left corner there, you can see that yellow posting there, which would be in accordance with the Planning Act. These images here show the proposed addition, which is to take up half of the tennis court there. Again, coming out towards Lakeshore Road. So you have the fence for the tennis court, and also on the other side of the fence, you have the mature trees there as well, buffering it from view. Next image. A couple more shots here looking into the existing dwelling and the location of the proposed addition. So planning staff have reviewed the minor variance application and are recommending approval subject to the standard conditions outlined in the staff report, and also on the basis that it meets the 4 tests of the minor variance. Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karaskakis. I'll now ask the applicant, Caroline Bouma Morsink, who is registered to speak to the application, if she wishes to provide any comment or indicate if anything further to be added to the staff presentation.
Nothing to be added. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee members, do you have any questions or comments with regard to this application? Councillor Young?
Yeah, just reading through this application, something that really caught my attention, as I'm sure it has the other members of this council, that I'll just read it to you. More clearly, any development that is authorized by the Planning Act is exempt, and I say is exempt from Conservation Authority approval. I just want to comment on it because it has far-reaching effects, obviously, in this community with all the heritage features we have. I just have a second question for Mr. Kyriakis there. Sorry, and it's further clarification of Mr. Whitleyb's explanation to me. He explained it well, but there's just a little doubt in my mind as to what, again, Dr. Julie Kreka, consultation coordinator for the elderly First Nation. I just want you, I'll read it very briefly again. As this property is waterfront, an archaeological assessment is, and she emphasizes, is required. So my question to you, Mr. Kyriakis or Mr. Whitley, at what point does the legislation kick in? I've heard you say that if it's a major development, a survey, or at least that sort of thing, that a archaeological assessment or dig would be accomplished and are done. And the ones I've seen are usually done in the back corner of the property, or the out of the way of the excavations. But again, at what point does it kick in? Again, she's indicating is required. Is that, is she speaking to the legislation or on that? Or again, is it when only major development is planned for an area?
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Young. Planning staff recognize that that there are archaeological remnants and prehistoric potential areas within the township and along water corridors that could be greatly increased. There's no statutory requirement under the Planning Act for the submission of an archaeological report. And further to that, the township's adopted official plan specifically mentions that minor variances shall not require the submission of an archaeological report unless council or committee requires one to be completed. So under the basis of the Planning Act, there's no such requirement for that unless we feel that strongly that the applicant should undertake one.
Just to follow up, just very briefly, Ms. Kargakis, then it's an opinion provided or by planning that whether one should take place or not, correct?
If I may, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Young, further to what Mr. Karaskakis said. So where there's flexibility in applying those requirements is staff have access to, and this isn't a publicly available mapping layer because it's essential to protect the integrity of these sites and prevent them from being disturbed by curious individuals. But the mapping available does provide us with known archaeological sites. So where we might work within the context of the planning legislation, the Planning Act, and exercise the option to require an archaeological study would be if, for example, a site such as this was in proximity to a known archaeological site, right? I mentioned the municipality as a whole is generally considered high archaeological potential, but there are archaeological hotspots, if I may use that term, within the municipality. So that would be a situation where we would consider imposing that requirement as requested by the Alderville First Nation. That's not the case here.
Thank you, Ms. Kariakis, and thank you, Mr. Whitley, for your further information.
Thank you all. Thank you, Councillor Young, for your questions and staff for your answers. Hey, can you refer, please, for me to page 30 of the agenda? And above the, this has to do with this application. Oh, maybe it doesn't. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong application. My error. Okay. Members of council, do you have any further questions or comments on this application? No? Seeing none? Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone registered to speak here or on the internet?
There were no additional registrations received.
Thank you very much. And is there anyone who has shown up since the meeting has started? Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Please step forward and state your name for the record into the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Your Worship, and council members. My name's Matt Price. I apologize for failing to register to speak, but I am here acting as the agent for the homeowner. And if there's any further questions that need to be clarified, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Price. Has there been any further correspondence received during the course of the hearing with regard to this matter?
No, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any particular questions for Mr. Price in regard to this? Okay, seeing none. So, Madam Deputy Clerk, may we hear the motion for this application, please?
Moved by Hutchinson, seconded by Shell. It is recommended, one, that DS 2023-075, Andy Karaskakis, Manager Planning Services, Reminor Variance Application 2023-A34 by Richard Morsink and Carolyn Buma Morsink, 201 Lakeshore Road West, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023-A34, specifically to permit the construction of an addition, attached garage to the single detached dwelling with a reduced front yard setback of 2.59 meters, 8.49 feet, and an interior side yard setback of 1.9 meters, 6.2 feet on lands municipally known as 201 Lakeshore Road West, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2023-075. 3, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. All in favor? The motion is carried. This completes the application process and closes this hearing. The committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regards to the application. So thank you all very much. With that, we move on to public hearing application number 2023-A35. The applicants are Amanda and Joel Davis, and the municipal address is 493 Penetanguishene Road. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the proposed application by Amanda and Joel Davis on lands municipally known as 493 Penetanguishene Road. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the proposed application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received on this matter?
Yes, correspondence from Jones Consulting Group Limited, August 18, Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, August 21, County of Simcoe Transportation and Engineering, August 22, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, August 23, and Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, dated August 28, 2023.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Danielle Waters, planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. Waters, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is minor variance application 2023-A35 for 493 Penetanguishene Road. The zoning is agricultural, rural, and environmental protection. The official plan designation is agricultural, and the current use is residential. Okay, so we have quite a few variances here. There's kind of two sections to them, one being for an addition to the existing single family dwelling, and then kind of a section for the detached accessory building that they're also proposing. So the first page here is showing the single detached dwelling, the addition that they're looking to put on, a second story over the existing first story. When we go further on, you'll see that the existing dwelling is within that EP zone, and they're looking to increase the size of that. So increasing a non-complying structure, a non-conforming structure, as well as the setback from the water course at the rear of the property, which will be 16.2 meters. They will not be going any closer than what the existing dwelling is. They're going up for a second story. Next slide. And then here are the ones for the detached accessory building. So they are increasing the height of, or requesting the increase of a height for the detached accessory building to 6.2 meters, as well as the maximum floor area. So it will have two floors, the first floor being 1,300 square feet, and then the second floor being 1,191 square feet, for a total of approximately 2,500 square feet, as well as a setback from the environmental protection zone of 5.5 meters. Next slide. Here we can have the aerial photo of the property. So as you can see, the water course that goes straight through that property. And you can see closer to the north section there how it kind of bends towards the rear property line. That's why the detached accessory building, which will be on that north lot line there, closer to the road, it will be farther away from that water course there. Next slide. Here we can see the zoning, so the environmental protection zone as well as the agricultural zone of the property. Next slide. And then the official plans, so the current township official plan, agricultural, the adopted official plan has it as Greenlands, the same as the county. Here we can see the applicant's site plan. There's a lot going on in it. So the kind of dark highlighted portion right there, perfect, is the proposed detached accessory building. And then a couple meters away from that is the existing dwelling. And the addition is at the far end of the dwelling. Perfect right there. Next slide. Here we can see the dwelling addition, the second floor, and as well in the photos of the site photos, you'll see that the dwelling is it's a raised bungalow, so it's already kind of a couple steps up, and then they're also adding a second floor. And then the accessory building to the right there with the height. Next slide. Here, north and south on Penetanguishene Road, as well as the notice sign being posted. And the photo to the left shows the existing dwelling in the EP zone. So the very left side of that photo is the existing dwelling, and then the water course to the rear. Here, the sun was kind of in the photo there, but it's a raised bungalow, so it's already kind of a little bit taller than just a normal one step up house. And then the photo to the right just shows a photo from the road, and you can kind of see in the middle of the photo, it looks like there's a trailer parked there. That's where the accessory building will be going, and we'll see that in the next photos. And here is the location for the accessory building. Photo to the left shows that trailer there, and then the tree line is approximately where that water course is. And then the photo to the right showing the location of the accessory building, and then just to the right of that being the existing dwelling. So a couple things to look at in the conditions here. One being the normal detached accessory building not to be used for human habitation, commercial purposes, or for home industry. The county has requested an entrance permit. They don't have record of the entrance that is there, so if the owner is able to come up with that and provide that, that's fine, or they'll just apply for a new entrance permit. The applicant has worked with NVCA to make sure that they are complying with what they're looking for. So I think they've moved the structure around a bit prior to applying for the variance. So NVCA has no objections to the proposal. And lastly, the F there, the applicant applies for and obtains the building permit for the dwelling addition prior to the permit for the accessory building, and that the detached accessory building shall not receive occupancy prior to the dwelling's addition. So currently, the existing house is somewhat smaller than what the proposed accessory building will be. So when we're looking at a minor variance, we're looking to make sure that the structure is secondary and subordinate to the dwelling being the main use. So we're looking to have that addition approved prior to the accessory building to ensure that that accessory building will maintain its secondary use. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Waters. I'd now ask the applicant, Joel Davis, who is registered to speak, if he has any wishes to provide any comments or indicate if he has anything further to be added to the staff presentation. Please come forward, Mr. Davis. And
hello, Pete, Mr. Lavoie, and thanks, Danielle, for explaining that. That sounded really great, by the way. Yeah, I just had two questions, really. The one was the entrance record. I'm just kind of unsure on what that exactly is. So is that, would I just reach out to, I had a girl consultant help me, just reached out to her and asked that. And
yes, probably. I think Ms. Waters might be able to answer that, but as far as I understand it, the county has to have a record of entrances off of their roadways. So would that answer would ultimately come from the county.
Okay. And then my other question was, I understood the part about it being the addition being approved. However, my question is, can I build the garage or the accessory building first? Due to the, I won't go too much into detail, but it's been really hard living without a garage on this property. We have 4 children and the place is just a mess, and we need somewhere to put our stuff. And so is that possible to do? If I understand the part that it has to be approved first, the second story addition, which is just half of the house, but like half is going up another story. But if that's approved, can I build the garage first, or is there going to be a conflict there?
Ms. Waters or planning staff, could you answer that, please?
Yeah, through Deputy Mayor Lavoie. So I did word it specifically to allow for that. That's why there's kind of 2 sections to it. You have to apply for the dwelling addition, have those plans approved, and then you'll be able to apply for that detached structure, knowing that you won't be able to get occupancy for that detached structure prior to getting occupancy for the addition.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to clarify, occupancies, I could still park like vehicles in there and whatnot. Is that correct? Or would that affect anything with the secondary structure?
It would be closing of the permit, basically.
Okay, all right. So I could use it, just the permit's not closed. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
you. Were those your all questions?
No, I mean, no, I've been trying to get this for a while, and it looks like maybe it's going to happen.
Okay, all right.
No, thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Keep your fingers crossed. Thank you. Committee members, do you have any questions for staff or the applicant? Oh, seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone registered via Zoom or otherwise to speak to this matter?
No, there were no additional registrations received.
Okay, and is there anyone here in the chambers who didn't register who wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing none, okay. Mr. Whitlib, has anyone else provide a comment during the course of the hearing?
No additional comments were received by email during the hearing.
Thank you very much. With that, Madam Deputy Clerk, may we hear the motion, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Young. It is recommended 1, that DS 2023-073, Danielle Waters, planner, reminder variance application 2023-A35, Amanda Davis, 493 Penetanguishene Road, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023-A35, specifically for permission to construct an addition to the dwelling within the environmental protection EP zone and to construct a new detached accessory building with an increase in area, height, and reduced setback from the EP zone on the lands municipally known as 493 Penetanguishene Road, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2023-073. 3, that the applicant be advised of the committee's decision under the Secretary-Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions with respect to the draft motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? The motion is carried. This completes the application process and closes this hearing. Mr. Davis, you're free to proceed. The committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation. A copy of Oh, you're welcome. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comment during the hearing in regards to the application. Okay, on to the next hearing. Application number 2023A-36. The applicant is 1522417 Ontario Limited. The legal description of the property is Concession 5, West Part, Lot 22, RP 51R 4566. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comment with respect to the proposed application by 1522417 Ontario Limited on lands legally known as Concession 5 West Part Lot 22 RP 51R 4566. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the proposed application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received on this matter?
Correspondence received from Jones Consulting Group Limited, August 18, Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, August 21, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, dated August 23rd and 31, Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, August 28, Lynn Morgan Cantor, dated August 30 and September 5th, and Steve and Lisa Lancione, dated September 5th, 2023.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Danielle Waters, planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. Waters, please. Can you hear us, Ms. Waters?
Sorry, I like minimized the Zoom, so I couldn't find it. Okay.
No worries.
So minor variance application 2023A36. Location is line 4 and Vasey Road, so way up in the north. Zoning is agricultural, rural, and environmental protection. The official plan designation is environmental protection 1. Environmental protection 2, and agricultural, and it is currently vacant land. So the applicant is proposing to construct a single detached dwelling and is looking for a reduced setback to the environmental protection zone from 30 meters to 11.33 meters. Here we can see the aerial photo of the property. The applicant is looking to put the house in like the top left of that red square there. There is a water course that goes through the middle of the property. Next slide. Here we can see the zoning, so you can see the little bit of agricultural rural that they have there, as well as the environmental protection zone covering the majority of the property. Next slide. And here we can see the official plan designations. So in the current official plan, a bit of agricultural and then the environmental protection 1 and 2. And then in the adopted official plan, greenlands and greenlands in the county as well. Here is the applicant site plan. So it's a bit zoomed in to that top left corner from the aerial photo, where we can see the driveway going in, the house with an attached garage, and then the septic bed just to the south of that. And then the EP line, I believe, is that dotted line kind of going through right there. Perfect. Okay, next slide. And the photos north and south on line 4, and the notice sign being posted. Now it's a vacant lot and it's fully treed, so we can see the photos of the vacant lot there. The photo on the left does identify, I believe, the driveway stakes. There's a little red stake and then one more in the middle there. Next slide. So planning staff have recommended approval for the application. A couple things to note just based on some of the comments that have come in. NVCA has submitted, the applicant has submitted an environmental impact study to NVCA, who have reviewed it and have no objections to the application. They will require a permit, which I did receive additional correspondence from NVCA, which they just wanted to identify that as a permit is required for the development, additional review from the regulations department is required, and additional studies may be required during their permit process. So they just wanted to add that. Yeah, an environmental impact study has been reviewed and all of that and submitted for the application. And just the kind of normal conditions there with requiring the NVCA permit. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Waters. I'll now ask is there an agent who's registered to speak, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Staff did not receive registration from the applicant.
There's no registration. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Committee members, do you have any questions or comments from staff with regard to this application? Okay, seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone registered to speak?
Staff did not receive any public registrations.
No public registration and no registration from an agent either.
I'm sorry, there were no registrations from the applicant or the
or an agent.
public. My
Yeah.
apologies.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
It's unusual, so I just want to clarify it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Is there anyone in the gallery who would like to, I see a hand raised. Please come up to the microphone and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Van Amelsfort. I am the owner of 1522417 Ontario. If there are any questions,
okay,
I could answer them. I was here this week. I didn't know I had to register.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's fine, as long as you're here.
Yep.
That's why the process goes the way it does. Does anyone on the committee have questions for the applicant? Okay.
Thanks.
None at all. Thank you very much. Has there been any additional correspondence received on this matter during the course of the hearing, Mr. Whitlip?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. With that, I think we can now hear the motion, Madam Deputy Clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my apologies. Please come forward and state your name at the podium with regard to this matter.
I'm Lynn Morgan, and I live at 6239 Line 4 North, which is actually the same address as this commented on vacant property. And so I'm not quite sure how that happened, except it did belong once to the 93-acre farm that I live on. So I am actually right next to where this proposed building and large septic tank is going to go. And I have two people with me, one who lives to the north of that and one who lives right across the road. And we all sent in questions. And did you receive the correspondence with a number of questions in it?
Madam Deputy Clerk, did we receive those correspondence?
Correspondence was received. Would you like me to read out the list again?
Please.
Thank you. Correspondence was received from Jones Consulting Group Limited, August 18. Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, August 21. Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, August 23rd and 31. Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, August 28. Lynn Morgan Cantor, August 30 and September 5th. And Steve and Lisa Lancione, dated September 5th, 2023.
Yes, so indeed we did receive that.
Okay.
So,
And should we tell you what our questions are?
yes, please.
Okay. My first question was that I got very short notice of this application, and I haven't had time to do a survey of my land, but I would like to have time to be able to do that, because it is right, part of it is my wetland.
Is there a dispute as to who owns the land that this permit applies to? Is that the root of the concern?
I don't know who owns it. Well, I know it's a numbered company, but
Right. But there's no, you're indicating it has the same municipal address as your home.
correct?
That's correct? Yeah, okay.
Correct. Which has caused some confusion.
Sure.
Yes, because there was, I think, an advertisement for building a home on this property, and I've had a lot of vehicle activity coming in and out of my
Sure.
property, because the property that they're asking to build on doesn't have a driveway or
Right.
anything. There's no indication that that's 6239. I have the only sign.
Right, okay, just one moment, please. Planning staff, could you address this matter as to the same?
Yeah. So, Deputy Mayor, so the township staff don't have an address for this property either. That's why in the circulation it was a roll number and the legal description. If there is a lot of the time when something is up for sale, a real estate agent will utilize the neighboring property's address. And unfortunately, that's not something that we can control if they do that. Whenever I receive calls, I tell them to identify it as a lot or legal description with the roll number. Unfortunately, that's not something that we can really control.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. So it's not us who are using that address. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did have concerns, so I only discovered that it had the same address 2 days ago. And I had previously, a few months ago, asked my farmer who does my land to put a gate in where the where his machines come in, and then I have somebody planning a gate for where mine is. But that's because of that confusion.
Okay.
Anyway, to go on, I'm not familiar with this kind of experience, but I did contact quite a few people who I heard were environmentalists, and every one of them said to me that this should not be happening the way that it's laid out, that it's the septic bed that's the concern for us, and the house itself, we're quite okay with the house being built, but the septic should be 98 plus feet from the wetland, and they're asking for 37 plus feet from the wetland. So we had concern about that and wondered whether there wasn't another way there are a lot of different options for septics, and if there would be another way that they could come up with something that wasn't on the wetlands. So that's my question.
Okay. I believe, Ms. Waters, that the NVCA would have commented on the septic system?
Yeah, so as I stated before, the applicant has submitted a 65-page environmental impact study, which was submitted to Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority for review, and they did provide comments that they had no concerns with the proposal, that a permit is required. It should be noted that the requested setback is not from the wetland, it's from the environmental protection zone, which is an over-exaggeration basically of the location of a wetland or a water course, et cetera. So that's something to be noted, that that's not the exact distance from the water itself, but from the environmental protection zone. Any sort of septic setbacks, et cetera, all of that will be covered through the Nottawasaga Valley permit. And like I stated as well, they did submit additional comments just to clarify that if they may require additional studies through their permit process as well.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it does, Ms. Waters. Thank you very much. So the Conservation Authority has reviewed and approved the installation of the structure and the septic system in accordance with their standards.
Okay. I think the people that came with me will have some questions as well, but I do have a question about when do you have to have an archaeological study for building on a property in the Huronia? Like, what constitutes the rules?
Okay, just one moment. Director Whitlib, would you like to answer that question again? This matter did come up in one of the earlier hearings. Perhaps you weren't here for that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So the Planning Act does provide for the ability for municipalities to, among other things, have regard for cultural heritage resources and ask for studies. As I mentioned to the committee earlier, the township in general is considered to have high archaeological potential. There's a long history of indigenous and the European settlement here. Having said that, there are certain hotspots within the municipality where there's concentration of known archaeological sites, and that's something staff have regard for. In terms of the current policies of the official plan and the adopted official plan, as Mr. Kiriskak has mentioned, the adopted official plan provides clarity that it is a policy of the township, will be a policy of the township once that document is approved moving forward, to exempt minor variance applications from the requirements for an archaeological study. That's based on, generally speaking, the footprint of such development is relatively small and there's relatively low risk. When is an archaeological study automatically required? Certainly with residential plans of subdivision or large commercial industrial site plans involving large areas, large footprints on sites that are, for the most part, undisturbed. So, for example, would we require an archaeological assessment on a redevelopment of a lot within an existing industrial park, such as Forest Home? Not likely. Would we require an archaeological assessment for a commercial or industrial development on a lot that's forested or agricultural land? Yes, there's a high potential that we would. In this case, it's a minor variance application. It has not been the practice of the township to require an archaeological study. Certainly, if during the course of an excavation, as would be the case of any foundation that's being dug or any septic system that's being installed, if there are archaeological resources, that landowner has obligations immediately under the Ontario Heritage Act to report those findings. So that legislation still exists, but in this case, staff are not seeking an archaeological assessment.
So it would be the owner's obligation to, okay. I'm strongly suggesting that he pursue that, because I have some pretty clear evidence that that land did belong to my property before, and my property, I believe, might be a very significant hotspot. And I do have evidence of that. So I don't know if you want me to give it to you after, or if you want to get into that now. I've only just kind of realized this myself. And I believe there's been 3 significant archaeological digs on my property. The first one I know of was 1935. And then there have been 2 others. And there is, I believe they were registered, so I'm surprised that it didn't come up.
Do you have any comment on that, Director Whitlib?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. No, I mean, I suppose we're in the hands of the committee in terms of the recommendation is before you. If there's additional information that the committee wishes to have staff review, there's the option for deferral to take in that additional information. Otherwise, we're in the committee's hands here.
Okay. And as far as the staff's review of this application, you mentioned earlier that you did have a layer not publicly available that indicated where there had been archaeological finds made previously, and those did not come up on those layers.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll defer to Ms. Waters, but there's been nothing that we're aware of. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but from staff's perspective, and again, keeping in mind that once the adopted official plan policies are in place, this would be exempt pursuant to those policies because it is a minor variance application with a relatively low, again, impact in terms of a small footprint. So we try and balance the need to protect the integrity and value of archaeological resources against the reality of without over encumbering an applicant with cost and process where it may not achieve a planning or a cultural heritage objective in the end.
Okay, thank you very much. And do you have the evidence with you today?
I've got one piece of paper that I just pulled out about an hour before I came.
Right.
Would you like me to read it to you? It's the actual, I photographed it. I didn't bring the actual piece, but I photographed it.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it?
Is it lengthy?
It just refers, the reason I brought it is it refers to the 3 digs.
And are they in the vicinity?
I can tell you, well, I'm not sure, although there are a couple of maps. One is called the Hunter site, one is called the Prentice site, and I don't know if the third one had a name. The Hunter site was, I think it was 1935, and I started researching this weekend because my understanding was that what was found was a very significant Huron number of artifacts, and that it went over the border to the United States.
Could I ask you to just for one moment, please? Yes, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Can we ask the resident to please adjust her microphone?
Oh, sorry.
So the sound comes through clear.
I should know that. Are you hearing better?
That's okay. Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam.
I'm pretty sure that what was found is in a museum in Milwaukee. It's called the museum, the Milwaukee Public Museum. And there was an archaeologist from there who came to 6239 in 1935, and that all went over the border. So, you know, I'm even thinking this is a larger concern because now countries have started asking for their artifacts back. So I was going to talk to the ROM about it and just see where to go next. But the other 2, one was done by the people who were on the property at the time, and I think it was 1971, and they were so interested in what had happened earlier that they took it upon themselves to start looking themselves, and it's called the Prentice site. And there are actually a lot of those artifacts that are still on the property. I don't own them, but they are there. Yeah. And then the other one was somebody that's mentioned in this piece of paper called Mr. Ridley, and it was an archaeologist that the Prentice family contacted to come and, after the man from Milwaukee had come, to come and see what could be found. And he found a lot of artifacts, and he was very impressed, and he apparently registered it officially. So it should be, you know, you should be able to find it. I can give you where he registered it. And also they communicated with the Smithsonian Museum, and that communication should be, I don't have anything, there's just a mention of it in that piece of writing that I have. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. Just one moment, please. And then
My neighbors may have some questions they want to ask.
Okay.
But I thought this was important to bring up, and I think that I'm obligated to bring it up as well. I don't really have a choice. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Director Whitlib, you had a further comment?
Yeah, I mean, one suggestion I would have, should the committee be considering deferral in relation to the matter, we could certainly speak with our colleagues at the County of Simcoe. The county is still the upper tier planning authority, and they wear the hat of the province, if you will, so they're responsible for matters of provincial interest. Archaeological resources are matters of provincial interest. And the county are the authors of the county's archaeological management plan. So we can certainly take in the information and consult with the county staff in terms of the information that they may have about the archaeological potential, which is, we're looking at our mapping right now. The information we're hearing from the neighbors more detailed than what we have in front of us. So if there is additional information or sites that county staff are aware of through the archaeological management plan, then we could, undertake that exercise.
And would a county have commented on that aspect of this application previously? Or would they have been invited to comment on this aspect?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to the committee. So the county would be invited to comment on the application. Whether that was the scope of their review, that would be something we'd need to check with.
To clarify.
I don't want to speak for them on that.
Would it be possible to amend the motion in a manner such that if there were sufficient grounds for belief of significant archaeological remains, findings, that we could proceed with the motion, save and except for getting commentary from the county on that?
At this point, sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, I hesitate to know what that tipping point is in terms of what represents significant. So I think
right.
If a deferral or if there's if the committee's considering that, I think the appropriate approach would be to first receive the information and then consult with our county colleagues and report back and go from there.
Okay, and can we, Ms. Waters or the planning staff, do you have a sense of the area of the property that's being developed in square meters or hectares? I mean, in terms of assessing what the risk is that there's something on the lands of this proposed application.
To you, Deputy Mayor, I mean, it's a very small portion of the property. It's just that one top little corner there. I also wanted to note that we haven't received any correspondence from any First Nations communities like we did on the other applications.
And thank you, Ms. Waters. And they were invited to comment?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, please. And just please come forward and just wait one moment. Director Whitlib.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in answer to your last question, that triangle of land between the environmental protection zone and the road and the property boundary is approximately 0.45 of an acre, so under half an acre.
Under half an acre. Okay. Yes. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Lisa Lancioni, and and my husband. We are the property owners directly across the road at 6234, line 4 north. I just have a couple of questions. firstly, before I forget, the last comment made regarding First Nations. I only know of Lynn Morgan and myself that received a notice. So if a First Nation has received a notice, I would like correspondence as to who they were, please.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Derek, I'm not sure how sending out the list of, there is a list of, I believe, approximately 10 Indigenous communities that are circulated on all applications. And when it comes to circulation to residents, it's only within a 60-meter range that are circulated. So Derek, I'm not sure if you're able to provide the circulation list.
Would that be located on your website, on the county's website?
Director Whitlip.
Medonte.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So staff can certainly provide you with the list of First Nations, and as Ms. Waters indicated, they're all automatically circulated on all planning applications regardless of the location of the site in the township.
Okay, thank you. Yep. I only asked that question because, as I said, in the neighbors that I spoke to, Lynn was the only other neighbor that received this notice. So I just found that the area of awareness was very, very small. The applicant site plan that's on the screen right now, you had mentioned earlier that it doesn't really impact the environmental protection zone, or doesn't come that close, or doesn't come close to the wetland. I would just like to know, I can see the septic bed. I would like to know exactly where that line is, or where that's delineated in terms of the environmental zone and then the wetland. In this paperwork, I found the map very confusing, and there wasn't even a compass on the map. Okay? It didn't say it was invasive. It didn't have line 4 on the map. So it took my husband and I a while to figure out that that was directly opposite our property. So I'm just curious to know exactly where that septic bed is in relation to the environmental protection zone and then the wetland. The wetland is important to me, and it's my priority. We have a significant wetland right across the road, and this wetland flows into mine. So that I just want to know. I want to be aware. I want to have some reassurance that this isn't going to be filled up with fill and a septic bed in the wetland. That's my concern. My husband and I did submit a letter of concern. We were mentioned at the beginning, so I don't know if all of you see that letter or if you read that letter, but it is very important to us and my family. We have 2 children. We have 100 acres. We enjoy that 100 acres. We have a ton of wildlife. We see it all the time, and that is a concern for me. I don't want my water polluted by a septic bed. I know there are several alternatives. There are smaller septic beds. We live in cottage country. Cottages are built on rocks all the time. They don't have septic beds. They have septic tanks. Cottages are built on lakes and rivers all over Northern Ontario. They're not permitted to put a septic bed in if they're too close to the boundary. They have a tank. So I'm just asking for some reassurance, and I'm asking for, have alternatives been discussed? We don't need massive septic beds anymore. There are much smaller beds. There are tanks. Possibly it could be repositioned. Okay? I just need some reassurance, because that's my home and that's where my kids play.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. I think, yeah, could I have some Any comments or questions with regard to this application from the members of the committee, please? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. Really do appreciate your comments and your concerns. But I think I'll refer you either to Derek or Catherine. To the NBCA is mandated by the province to ensure that the procedures and the proper procedures are fulfilled before things like this take place that are taken into consideration with setback amendments. And there is a process, and they can't just come in and backfill a wetland, and because there are grading, site grading policies that they have to adhere to. So there is a process in place to ensure that what the application's been approved upon is monitored and adhered to a set of guidelines. So Catherine or Derek, would you like to speak to that, just to hopefully put some people's concerns at ease?
Yeah, I can speak to it. So, like I said, the environmental protection zone line that is, Derek, if you can use your cursor just to outline where it's located there. Yeah, so the septic is outside of that line as well. A septic is not considered a structure, so it does not require, it's not required to be that 30 meter setback. That's why it wasn't in the request. And just from a quick mapping tool, it looks like the septic is approximately 100, maybe a bit more, 100 feet away from the outline of the wetland that I have. And again, the applicant has submitted an environmental impact study done by an environmental consultant that was submitted to the Conservation Authority. And as the Conservation Authority said, if they require additional studies or things, or if they require them to move the septic later on, due to the regulations department, they'll be required to do so in order to get a permit to construct that structure. I think hopefully that answers the question a bit.
Could I ask the question again?
Yes, please come forward to the microphone.
So can you tell me, please, the closest corner of that septic bed, which I assume is the southern corner, what is the distance from there to the wetland?
The most northern part is actually probably the closer part, and it's approximately 100 feet.
So I'm having trouble understanding how that northern part on this map, it does not appear to be closer to the dashed line. The bottom corner appears to be much closer to that dashed line. I believe you said the dashed line was the boundary of the environmental protection area?
So sorry, I'm just taking a look here at the mapping. So from the evaluated part of the wetland, it's the most northern part is the closest, and it's approximately 140 feet away. And then there's kind of some overspill of unevaluated, and that is approximately 90 feet.
Okay, so what would the other end of the septic bed be then?
I think the question was answered as 140 feet and 90 feet.
Yeah, that would be the northern
Correct.
portion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
those were the two numbers.
So the two dimensions you're talking about are 140 and 190 feet. And I think
Okay, I see.
Okay.
Yep. She mentioned evaluated and unevaluated, so I
Right.
thought she was giving me two measurements on the same corner.
No, but thank you very much. And I do want to stress as well, the Conservation Authority has has reviewed this, and, you know, there has been an environmental impact study of considerable.
I understand that, but I also heard that the procedure was.
You have to come up to the microphone, sorry.
I understand that, and I heard that earlier, but I also heard that it's a matter of purchasing a permit. So perhaps I don't understand the permit process from the Conservation Authority. Does that then suggest they are obliged to do something different in installing that septic bed than anyone else would? Or is it a matter of purchasing the permit and paying a fee to have the privilege of having the septic bed there? That's my question, I guess.
Okay, Director Whitlip?
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps I can add a bit of clarity to that. So the Conservation Authority regulated area in this location is much bigger than the wetland area, much bigger than the limits in the environmental protection zone. It takes into many of the surrounding properties. So what the Conservation Authority has provided is comments on the application. They reviewed the environmental impact study, but because these lands are within a permit regulated area, the applicant still has to go through that permit process. So just because the application was circulated, has been reviewed by the Conservation Authority, and the technical study has been reviewed by the Conservation Authority, that does not automatically grant the applicant a permit. They still have to apply for that permit and obtain it. It may very well at this point be purely an administrative process because a lot of that review has been done potentially, but I can't speak for the Conservation Authority. But the permit is a requirement, and that would address both construction of structures, also any site alteration, filling, grading, etc. All that is regulated under the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in this area.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from committee members with regard to this application? Yes, Councillor Young.
I'll be brief. What happens if we approve this tonight, the application? And I think the concerns have been addressed in terms of her concerns in regards to the septic system via the NVCA. But if we approve this tonight, is there any obligation on the applicant here to any finds or uncovers remnants of a native village, First Nations village? Is there any obligation here to report it? Just further to that, I've walked fields, plowed fields with my kids when they're younger. We've uncovered your arrowheads and your pottery and stone tools. One particular one in Innisfil that we reported it to the ROM. I don't know if anything has been found in this corner of this farm, but it would have surfaced via the plows. I guess the farmer that was originally there and plowed that field perhaps is gone now, or is as to whether anybody can speak to anything that was found in that particular corner, again, arrowheads or pottery or stone tools. But just getting back to my original question, Mr. Whitley, is there any obligation or on the applicant's part to advise someone, maybe the ROM or whoever?
Yeah, so through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Young, so certainly any one of us are all under the same obligations under the Ontario Heritage Act in terms of archaeological resources. No different than any of us, to put it in a different legislative context, are all under the obligations, for example, of the Endangered Species Act, even if we get a building permit, for a shed. If there's something there and we disturb it, we destroy it, we're potentially subject to prosecution.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just to follow up, so the application could be approved tonight, again, given what Mr. Whitley just said, condition that that perhaps it doesn't even have to be a condition. It's the law that he report that what he has found in terms of First Nations peoples.
Correct. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from Councillor Schell?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. To the lady who's concerned about the septic system, I happen to be a master plumber and have been in the business a long, long time, and I do know that the authorities are very strict on making sure that the environment is protected. And just to comment, that most people don't know how septic tanks and septic systems work, but for the public's information, 40% of the fluid that goes out into your tile bed goes into percolation through the soil. It's 60% of it goes through evaporation from the sun drawing it out. So less impact into the ground than into the environment, into the air. Just wanted to make that information knowledgeable to everybody.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Okay. Did we go, did I ask you, Director Whitlib, if there were any further communications from the public during the course of this hearing?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I don't remember if you asked me, but I've just checked again and there were no further communications.
That's fine. Neither did I. Thank you very much. Can we have the draft motion read, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Greenlaw. It is recommended one, that DS 2023-074, Danielle Waters, Planner, Reminer Variance Application 2023-A36, 1522417, Ontario Limited, 4346-020-007-07301, Concession 5, West Part, Lot 22, RP 51R4566, Part 1, Medonte, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023-A36, specifically for permission to construct a single detached dwelling with a reduced setback from the environmental protection zone of 11.33 meters, 37.17 feet on lands legally known as Concession 5, West Part, Lot 22, Part 1, Medonte, roll number 4346-020-007-07301, Township of Oro-Medonte be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2023-074. 3, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary-Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? The motion is carried. This completes the application process and closes this hearing. The committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regards to this application. Once again, thank you all again. With that, we move on to application 2023B-12, Phyllis Holmes, 145 Robinson Street. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the proposed application by Phyllis Holmes on lands municipally known as 145 Robinson Street. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the proposed application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been correspondence received on this matter?
Correspondence received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, August 22, Enbridge Gas Inc., August 24, Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, August 28, and Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority dated August 30th, 2023.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Andy Karaskakis, Manager of Planning Services, who will explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and any written statement received from the applicant. Mr. Karaskakis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The subject lands have a total lot area of approximately 0.88 hectares and are located on the south side of Robinson Street. The subject lands support a single detached dwelling, a detached accessory building, and a boathouse. The subject property is zoned shoreline residential in accordance with the township zoning bylaw and is zoned shoreline in the township's official plan. The applicant is proposing to sever and merge lands for the purpose of a boundary adjustment. And the description of the lands to be severed and conveyed from 145 Robinson Street to be added to 135 Robinson Street would have a frontage of approximately 6.9 meters along Robinson Street, a depth of approximately 139 meters, and an area of approximately 0.16 hectares. Now, these lands that are to be severed and added to 135 Robinson Street are currently vacant. And the total merged lands, or the lands to be enhanced as a result of the boundary adjustment, which would be the benefiting parcel 135 Robinson Street, would have a total lot frontage along Robinson Street of 28.2 meters, a lot area of approximately 0.69 hectares. And it should be noted that no new lots are proposed as a result of the boundary adjustment. Image here shows an air photo of the subject property outlined in red. So that would be the property 145 Robinson Street. And it should be noted that the land subject to the boundary adjustment to be added to the property to the west, 135 Robinson Street, would be a sliver of land, as noted in the description in the chart from the previous slide, going along the westerly lot line. So essentially the westerly lot line to approximately the edge of the driveway, which goes down from Robinson Street through 145 down to the water's edge there. And that's approximately the area that's to be severed from 145 and to be added to 135 Robinson Street. The subject property is zoned shoreline residential in accordance with the township zoning bylaw, which is similarly zoned along Robinson Street. These three images here show the land use from the current township's official plan and the adopted official plan, which is designating the lands as shoreline, and the county's official plan designates the subject properties as rural. The applicant provided a sketch of the land subject to the boundary adjustment. So in the image in front of you, the lands that are noted with a orange hue color are the lands to be severed from 145 and to be added to 135, which extends all the way from Robinson Street down to the lake. A couple of images here show the public notice sign installed in accordance with the Planning Act and views looking east and west along Robinson Street. Few images here showing, again, the lands that are subject to the boundary adjustment. As noted previously, it's approximately 6 meters wide along the frontage of Robinson Street. To the image on the left there shows the driveway of 145, and kind of where that sign is located, it would be approximately the location of the or the start of the boundary adjustment. A couple of more shots here looking in the interior of the subject property of the lands that are subject to the boundary adjustment. It's heavily vegetated, wooded, and is vacant of all structures. And this image here is taken from the dock of 145 Robinson Street, looking towards the lands that are subject to the boundary adjustment, which would be to the east of the Canada flagpole, and the lands 135, which would be a bit further to the west there, or to the left of the heavily vegetated tree lot there. Planning staff have reviewed the applicant's consent application for a boundary adjustment and are recommending approval of the application, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the staff report. Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask the agent, Megan Asbill of Innovative Planning Solutions, for any comment or indicate if she has anything further to be added to the staff presentation.
I have no additional comments and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee members, do you have any questions, concerns with regard to this application? Seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone who has registered to speak to this matter?
No, there were no additional registrations received.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone present who has come in to speak to this matter? I see none. Any additional correspondence being received during the course of the hearing? Director Whitlib?
No, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we have the motion read, please?
Moved by Young, seconded by Shell. It is recommended one that DS 2023-076, Andy Karaskakis, Manager, Planning Services, reconsent application 2023-B12 by Phyllis Holmes be received and adopted. 2, that consent application 2023-B12 to permit a boundary adjustment having a lot frontage of approximately 6.9 meters, 22.6 feet, a lot depth of approximately 139.0 meters, 456.0 feet, and an area of approximately 0.16 hectares, 0.41 acres, to be added to the property municipally known as 135 Robinson Street, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2023-076. 3, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary-Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions about the proposed motion? No, thank you. All in favor? The motion is carried. This completes the application process and closes this hearing. The committee wishes to thank those in attendance for your participation. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regards to the application. I think we've worked our way through all of the hearings. And we do now have reports of municipal officers. So with regard to DS 2023072, Catherine McCarroll, Intermediate Planner, review with regard to consent application to 2023-B11. May we have a motion for item 7A?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Young. It is recommended 1, that DS 2023-072, Catherine McCarroll, Intermediate Planner, reconsent application 2023-B11 and zoning bylaw amendment application 2023-ZBA 12, 2374357 Ontario Inc., 137 Line 9 South be received and adopted. That zoning bylaw amendment application 2023-ZBA 12, specifically to rezone the retained lands from the agricultural rural ARU zone to the agricultural exception 348 ARU 348 zone, to prohibit residential uses and recognize the reduced interior side yard setback of 2.0 meters, 6.6 feet for the existing agricultural building and silo, and rezone the severed lands from the agricultural rural ARU zone to the agricultural rural exception 349 ARU 349 zone, to recognize the increased floor area of 400.0 square meters, 4,305.7 square feet, and increased height of 5.0 meters, 16.4 feet for the existing oversized detached accessory building, and recognize the increased lot coverage of 7.8% for all detached accessory buildings on the lands municipally known as 137 Line 9 South, Township of Oro-Medonte, be deferred, to provide the applicant the opportunity to address the building division's comments. 3, that consent application 2023-B11 by 2374357 Ontario Inc. to permit the creation of a new lot having a lot frontage of approximately 76.0 meters, 249.3 feet, a lot depth of approximately 95.3 meters, 312.7 feet, and an area of approximately 0.6 hectares, 1.5 acres, to create a 1.0 meter, 3.3 feet, by 7.0 meters, 23.0 feet easement on the lands to be severed for access to the existing hydrant, and to create a 6.0 meters, 19.7 feet, by 6.0 meters, 19.7 feet easement on the lands to be retained for access to the existing well be deferred to provide the applicant the opportunity to address the building division's comments. 4, that the applicant be advised of the committee's decision under the Secretary-Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Very well read. Do you have any questions or comments with regard to the draft motion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you very much for your work on the file, Ms. McCarroll. 7B, report DS 2023-068 of Daniel Waters regarding a temporary trailer agreement. May we have this motion for item 7B, please?
Moved by Greenlaw, seconded by Hutchinson. It is recommended, 1, that DS 2023-068 Danielle Waters, planner, read temporary trailer agreement 1337, line 12 north, John Reed, be received and adopted. 2, that committee authorizes the request of John Reed to temporarily reside to a maximum of 18 months from the passing of bylaw number 2023-075 in a trailer on the property at 1337, line 12 north, and the trailer is to be removed after the completion of the dwelling. 3, that the appropriate draft bylaw authorizing the temporary agreement be brought forward for council's consideration. And 4, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Director of Development Services signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the draft motion? Seeing none, those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Waters. And then item 7C, DS 2023-077, Catherine McCarroll, Intermediate Planner, Minor Variance Application, Bonnie and Randy Sheldrake, 2309 Penetanguishene Road. May we have the motion for item 7C, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Clark. It is recommended that DS 2023-077, Catherine McCarroll, Intermediate Planner, Minor Variance Application 2023-A13, Bonnie and Randy Sheldrake, 2309 Penetanguishene Road, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023-A13, specifically for permission to build an addition to the existing detached accessory building garage with an increase in height of 6.7 meters, 22.0 feet, and an increase in floor area of 891.8 square meters, 9,600.0 square feet, on lands municipally known as 2309 Penetanguishene Road, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2023-077. 3, that the applicants be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary-Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions, or concern about the draft motion? Seeing none, those in favor, please. The motion is carried. Okay, I'd like to announce that the next meeting date is October 4th. And may we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Shell. It is recommended that we do now adjourn at 7:48 p.m.
Any comments, questions, or concerns about adjourning this evening? I see none. May I have all those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Mayor Greenlaw, over to you for the council meeting following the Development Services Committee meeting.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. Very well job. Great discussion tonight. And thank you, staff, for answering all the questions in detail. I'd like to call the council meeting to order, please. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, September 6, 2023 be received and adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. Are there any pecuniary interests to disclose at this time? Seeing none, may we please have a motion to draft the minutes of the previous council meeting, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023 be received and adopted as printed and circulated.
Any changes or seeing none? That's good. All in favor? That is passed. May we please have a motion to approve the recommendations to tonight's DSC meeting, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that the recommendations of the Development Services Committee meeting held on Wednesday, September 6, 2023 be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a motion for bylaw item 5A, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Hutchinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-075 be read a first, second, and third time, passed, be engrossed by the Deputy Clerk, signed and sealed by the Mayor.
All in favor? That is carried. We have a confirmation bylaw. Motion, please.
Moved by Bard, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-082, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, September 6, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, be engrossed by the Deputy Clerk, signed and sealed by the Mayor.
All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a motion to adjourn, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Hutchinson, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 7:51 p.m.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great evening.